Hello students, this will be a presentation on analyzing poetry, helping you get ready for your literary analysis essay. If you have not watched the PowerPoint titled Literary Analysis, Writing the Essay, or watched the YouTube video titled English Matters, The Spider Approach to Poetry, please stop what you're doing, stop this video, go watch those sources, and then come back and watch this presentation. Otherwise, you will not be successful and not understand what is going on. Here is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Emily Dickinson's Because I Could Not Stop for Death. In the last presentation, I gave you a type of thesis statement analyzing the what I believe is my theory of what Dickinson is doing in her poem. Again, this is a theory that I'm going to be proving with specifics from the organization, arrangement, rhyme, and rhythm of the poem. So that is something that I need to research, which is what I'm going to do with you today on this video. It is just a theory. I do not in any way claim to be an expert on poetry. And those who disagree are more than welcome to do so and write their own essay to prove their theories. And that's what's so fun about literature, your interpretation, as long as you support it with evidence from the primary source and from your research, you are analyzing literature properly. So let's go ahead and get started. In particular, I'm going to be looking at the organization, arrangement, rhyme, and rhythm of Dickinson's poem to prove that I believe the reason for her poem is to give us the message that death, as abstract as it is, she is trying to make it concrete for us in order to comfort us and to accepting death when he comes. I will be using concepts and vocabulary from the spider approach to analyzing poetry. So you will see organization, you see with the yellow arrows, organization, management, arrangement, and then you will see rhyme and rhythm. These are not words that I came up with. I took them from the YouTube video, okay? And you are more than welcome to do so as well if you are writing about poetry. So to help us with this, what I've done is I've taken the poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, and I typed it into Microsoft Word. And you can see I have some marks here on it, and I'm annotating the poem. This is what I highly recommend that you do for yourself and for your own poem. Start annotating on your books the ideas that you see so that you can start using them as facts to prove your theories. Because I've decided to talk about organization first, I'm going to look at that first. Organization deals with lines and stanzas. So I start to look at if you look at the blue brackets, you'll see that I have 6 stanzas highlighted in blue with the brackets, and that each stanza has 4 lines. And if you see the blue box here on the left, 4-line stanza is called a quatrain. That's a new vocabulary for some of us. But a quatrain is also what's used in hymn songs, which are songs usually used in church, like Amazing Grace and things like that. They are all also organized in quatrains. So the fact that she's organizing her poem in quatrains, 4-line stanzas, is bringing in that religious aspect of the faith of the afterlife to comfort her readers. The next thing that I want to look at is the arrangement on the page, particularly the punctuation. And if you see here in the green box on the right, you see that I'm talking about in particular those dashes, the long dashes. She uses them sometimes in the middle of the line, which is caesura, and then she uses them sometimes at the end of the line. And you see the first stanza, she uses it a lot in the end, right? Sorry. Right, because I could not stop for death, dash, he kindly stopped for me, dash, the carriage held but just ourselves, dash, and immortality, period. That's a very interesting period there, and I think we need to talk about that. But let's talk about the dashes first. Dashes are not periods. They do not finish the thought. They actually create a sense of pause. So what she's doing is she's purposefully making us pause, consider, but then at the same time, those dashes are like strings woven throughout the poem that draw us, pull us on to the next line, to the next thought. We can't stop there. We have to keep moving. The only place that she actually forces us to take a physical stop and pause is at the end of the first stanza where there's a period. And if you notice throughout the whole poem, it is the only period in the poem. So it's a very interesting place. Normally you would expect the period to be at the end of the poem, but again, we have a dash. So what's happening in the first stanza that's requiring a period? If you look at the content of the first stanza, you see this is where the narrator has died. And so this is the physical death, the end of her physical life, and therefore it does require a period to justify this stop, this finality of the physical. So why does she not use it for the rest? And if that's the end, right, then why does the poem keep going? I think once again we get to have some clarity on Dickinson's faith in the life after death, in the spirituality, in the religious concepts of salvation and redemption, and that there is more to a body, to a being, than just a physical body, right? Though the physical does end, and you see that here with a period, there's a very final place there. The physical does end, and it does end for all of us. That she believes that the spirit and the soul go on, and therefore the poem goes on. And so you see at the very end of the poem, she's going off towards eternity. We have the dash. We don't have a period, because she's telling us there is more coming. We're moving on, and she's drawing us on to think about the life after death. It's very interesting how punctuation can incorporate so many ideas about religious faith and life after death to be comforting to us, to know that there is more for us than just the physical. And I know there are many religions and there are many different faiths, but what we're doing is we're getting a concept of Dickinson's faith. Now let's move on to rhyme and rhythm. I'm going to start with rhyme because it is actually very minimal in this poem. We see things like me, immortality, civility, and then finally at the very end, eternity. Those are the only places of true obvious rhyming. I do not see any other clear rhyme. We do have something called a slant rhyme. If you look in purple here, slant rhyme is where a word sounds slightly similar, but something's off, okay? And you'll see it in the words chill and tool. Somewhat the same, but also somewhat off, right? There's a purpose for including slant rhyme, and if you find yourself having slant rhyme in your poem, the idea is that the author is purposely putting something in there that sounds off kilter, tilted, slanted, uncomfortable, okay? Now, I think if we go into the rhythm, it would help us understand why there's slant rhyme in stanza 4. It does not exist anywhere else in the poem. It only exists in stanza 4. So there's something going on in stanza 4 that would require slant rhyme, okay? Why there is no perfect rhyme, except for these pink areas, that is something I'm going to have to research about, okay? This essay requires outside research. I think this, because I lack knowledge on this, this is a perfect thing that I need to research, okay? This is a way for you to figure out what types of research you need to do for your literary analysis essay. All right, next thing I'm going to look at is the rhythm. Rhythm is the beat of the lines. Not all poems have a standard rhythm, especially if you have a free verse type of poem. It won't follow the normal dictates, the concrete, rigid dictates of rhythm, but Emily Dickinson's poem does. The way to find rhythm is to start with syllables. And if you see here in red, I have underlined the syllables of the words in the first 2 lines. Syllables are the number of words sounds per word. So for example, the word because, I'm going to highlight it here in red. See if I can do that. Yes. Because has 2 sounds. Therefore, it has 2 syllables. So what I've done, if you look underneath all the words in the first line that's highlighted in yellow, you'll see these little red little dashes. I start to count out the syllables in the line, and I come up with 8. Because I could not stop for death, that's 8. Next line. He kindly stopped for me, that's 6. And we go on to the line number 3. The carriage held but just ourselves, 8. And immortality, 6. So what we're getting here, if you see in the red box that I've highlighted, is an 8-6 count. Once again, that's taking us back to the hymn. Hymns have 8/6 counts. If you look over in the blue box, you'll see a quote from a very famous hymn, Amazing Grace. If you count out the syllables, you'll get the same thing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. 8. That saved a wretch like me. 6. So we get this 8/6, 8/6, 8/6 count. That repeats throughout the whole poem except for stanza 4. And if you see that I've put a bracket here in stanza 4, what happens is she flips. Or rather, he passed us. 6. The dews drew quivering and chill. 8. So there's something about stanza 4 that causes her to falter, to misstep, to break her rhyme and rhythm. But when you get back into stanza 5, she repeats, she goes back to the 8/6 again. And then the 8/6 continues for the rest of the essay. Okay, so the misstep, the falter only happens in stanza 4. So there's something happening in stanza 4 that's causing her to break her rhythm and actually also break rhyme and create some slant rhyme. Okay, just to make sure we understand, the syllables then, after you count out all the syllables, then you need to figure out the stress. The stress is where you put emphasis. So what I've done is I've put these orange hatchet marks over the stressed syllables in the lines. And in the lines that have 8 syllables, what you get is 4 stresses. Because I could not stop for death. And you're hearing me clap, okay? Next line. He kindly stopped for me. 3. And so what's happening is here in the orange, 4 stresses per line is iambic tetrameter. 3 stresses per line is iambic trimeter. And so what happens is each line alternates between tetrameter and trimeter. So you see lines 1 and 3 are tetrameter, lines 2 and 4 are trimeter. That is consistent for the whole poem except for stanza 4 where it flips. We start with trimeter and then we go to tetrameter. So what's going on in stanza 4? This is where the death has taken her through all of her life. She's gone through the schools, the recess, the fields, you know, to the setting sun, symbolizing the end, coming to the end. And then she starts talking about things being quivering, chilled. She starts talking about her gown being gossamer. Her hat is only tulle. Gossamer and tulle are very thin, spider-like materials. Spider thin, like a spider web. So we start to have this realization that she is transparent, more spirit-like. The realization that physically she really is dead. And I believe that in her understanding, Dickinson's understanding, my theory is that most humans would start to be afraid there, right? When we realize, oh my goodness, I really am dead. I've come to the setting sun of my life and I really am dead and I am only a spirit now. That is an upsetting moment of realization. And that would cause any of us to misstep. But if we go to the next line, she regains her rhythm and she sees her grave, right? The swelling of the ground. Bodies tend to go into the ground. She sees her grave. And the next line, next stanza, she is taken by death towards eternity. So what happens is, although the realization hits her hard, makes her off kilter, when she accepts it, when she sees her grave and accepts her death, there's comfort there because that is not the end. She is not in the ground. She is looking at the ground, but she is not in the ground, right? So that means that there is more for her, and death is taking her towards eternity with a dash. Not the end. There is no period there. It is not the end of her life. There is more to come. So all of this is to prove my thesis. Thinking of all those points that I just talked about, all of those I would put into my paragraphs to prove my thesis. What I'm thinking about in terms of organizing ideas is that organization and arrangement, I think, should be in one body paragraph together. Rhyme and rhythm should be in another body paragraph together. Simply because some of these ideas are short, especially with rhyme. There's not a lot there. I don't have a lot of rhyme like theory. And that would make it very difficult for me to make a whole body paragraph about rhyme when very little of it exists. Okay. Now, if I do research and I find some great ideas out there by others that talk about rhyme in Emily Dickinson's poems, I'll be like, yes, okay. And then maybe I can beef that up again and separate it out. But as it stands, just from what research I've done, from analysis that I've done, I think I'm going to do that. I think it will be 2 separate body paragraphs, organization and arrangement in one, rhyme and rhythm in another, all of which to prove that taking these abstract concepts about death and making them tangible in the way she's arranging it, in the way she's doing the rhythm, that we can beat it, things make death comforting and tangible for us and not so scary and abstract. I hope this presentation helped. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact your instructor. Thank you.